his district and to Springfield, but to the country to speak on the American Rescue Plan that has come across from President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. If I can, I'm just going to take my mask off for a second. Mayors have an interesting perspective because many a times we do have the ear and the pulse of the neighborhoods, the streets, and of what the needs are for business community, our residents, and city needs. So that's why it's extremely invaluable and important that Chairman Neal was the major thrust on crafting this plan. And much as he was there for myself in the city of Springfield during the tornado days, we utilized that money, and my team is well versed on utilizing that money from TJ Plant on down to, as President Biden says, rebuild bigger, better, and stronger. So we're looking at definitely about $97.5 million the Congressman is bringing to the city of Springfield, possibly $127 million plus, depending on how they break up the county money. And I want to thank the Congressman too. Anytime I called, whether we met or we spoke over the phone, he was always available to my cabinet heads. And we would have Zoom meetings, and my cabinet heads would advocate for things that they need, whether on the police side, fire, Echo Dev, health with Helen, etc. And he would craft that in that bill. So before I turn over to Congressman Neal, the specific categories that I'm going to utilize, and then we'll get more specific once we know through the Treasury, working through Congressman Neal's office, the crossing of the T's and the dotting of the I's on how specifically the money can be used. But we're going to continue to help our businesses, as Tim Sheehan, my Chief Development Officer, has done. Job creation and economic development, we're going to continue to do that. We're going to help our seniors, Helen, and we're going to make sure we help our seniors and health tax. Nonprofits have been hit very hard. We're going to look to make a pocket of money to help out our nonprofits. Capital projects. As you know, we did a lot of capital projects after the tornado. We're going to continue to do that. And housing. We're going to continue to stabilize our housing market, and especially right now what we've been doing on helping people pay mortgages, utilities, and rents. So those would be the major categories that we're looking to do. And again, I'm forever grateful to Congressman Neal for not only the professional and political relationship, but the long-time family friendship. And without further ado, the chairman of the House Ways and Means, Congressman Richie Neal.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
You can clap for that. We want more money.
After this, those department heads should be clapping. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your nice words, and thanks to all of you who assembled here this morning. I will tell you, for me, just to come into this room again, we're reminded of just the breathtaking beauty of this complex. You look at the ceiling and you look at the walls, and under the watchful eye of the Puritan, a St. Gaudens statue on State Street, next to the center of the many ways civilization, the public library. And the good news that we bring this morning is the result of tireless negotiations and the good vision of the President of the United States, Joe Biden. We worked hand in glove with him. I talked to Speaker Pelosi last night for a long time. I talked to her the night before, as well as we prepare now for the next round of what will be a successful initiative as it relates to infrastructure going forward. But this is really good news for the cities and towns of Massachusetts. This will allow mayors and department heads and select board members and town managers to fulfill long dreamed of opportunities. Wise investments of the public purse that people might not remember who the mayor was when it happened, or they might not remember who the director of that department was when it happened, but they'll take great satisfaction from the result. Look around here and a public park system that is second to none in America, for an arts complex, for a medium-sized city, how spectacular it is. Word of congratulations again, snow removal, we make sure the basics are done, policing, fire service, and all of those initiatives that have to take place. And I do want to give a shout out to Helen Colton. Not only has she been a longtime friend, but the confidence that she has given all of us through the work that she's done daily with reporting COVID statistical data, keeping us all aware of the vigilance that this is not behind us yet, but we're making great progress. So, it doesn't hurt that I was your grandparents' paper boy either. The money that the mayor indicated, it is between, it looks like just about $100 million, and once the interpretation comes down from the state, it could be as high as $127 million. The good news for the Springfield Public School System, $189 million. It will allow a superintendent who's done an outstanding job to, again, take up long-standing challenges to make sure that our schools are competitive as we take these young people into artificial intelligence, advances in technology, and the competition now that China is going to present to the United States everywhere in terms of learning opportunities. So for the state of Massachusetts, and I talked with Governor Baker extensively, day after day after day, to talk about the needs of the state as we crafted the legislation. And the day that the bill passed, President Biden called me, and we were in my office, and I would happen to be talking to Jim Kinney on the phone, and his number came up twice. I didn't recognize the number, I didn't take the call. And one of my staffers, Billy Tranghese, said, "It's the president." I said, "Get rid of Kinney." I said, "That's an easy call." So the president called, and when I put down the phone from the president, as he offered a note of congratulations for what our Ways and Means Committee had done, the next call was to Governor Baker, and he was elated with what we've done. So it's almost $8.5 billion for the state of Massachusetts as well. It's going to give him a lot of flexibility, again, to take on a lot of initiatives. So when you consider that what the pandemic has caused, there's also opportunity. And I think that what we're announcing today in terms of specificity highlights the role that that opportunity will play. So leave it up to the mayor and the department heads here to talk about what they intend to do, but this is a really fine day for Springfield and the surrounding communities in the 1st Congressional District of Western and Central Massachusetts. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you for the members of the media that are here. I don't know if you have any questions or comments of Congress or myself. Paul?
Is this money all part of the whole budget? Down about 8-some million revenue to be expended. I can't remember what the figures are, 35.
It's about 34.8 million. I get great, come on up, TJ, a great award-winning financial team. You're always dealing, as Congressman Neal knows, as days mayor, there's always structural budget deficits as you're moving forward. We've been very good on knocking that down. We've been very good at going after grants to knock down deficit spending for our residents and for our business community. What this will help us do is give stabilization, but just as important, it'll help us do investment. And just think back, it'll be a decade now, 10 years ago when the tornado, that EF3 tornado hit June 1st, 2011, how far we've come. But I'll let TJ speak a little more specifically.
Paul, I know we talked about this a few times. So far the city has spent $35.4 million in response to the pandemic. That's $8.5 million in deficit spending and $26.9 million in the grants that we received to date. The good news about the American Recovery Plan is that it allows us to backfill lost revenue. which is in the tune of 9 to 10 million at this point and continues to grow as we're over a year in the pandemic. And it allows us to invest in all the neighborhoods and areas that the mayor talked about in housing, economic development, job creation. We've lost a lot of businesses. We've got to look at our commercial businesses out there now. We know this is going to be impacted with the telecommuting that has happened, the working from home. So with the flexibility that the congressman has delivered, it's going to give us a great way to stabilize our budget and to continue to invest in the future.
You know, that's an important point. Tip O'Neill would always say, and I know the congressman knew him, all politics is local. Being a former mayor, that's an important point that TJ brought up, and Congressman Neal, as mayor, knows it very well too, and he knew Tip O'Neill, all politics is local. Many a times the Zoom cabinet head meetings we had, we would put this across, and he knows that. And this was part of the negotiation about giving flexibility to municipalities and when it came to the timeline and what we needed. So it all comes back to grassroots, and I'm very appreciative of Congressman Neal's efforts.
I'm glad the mayor mentioned that, because what the federal government did to rebuild after that horrific tornado, it's transformed neighborhoods. You drive through East Forest Park today, other than the tree situation, you might not know that there had been a tornado, because those homes were all rebuilt and people stayed. You look at the public parks, what happened, starting here at the river, all the way up, all the way to Southbridge, Massachusetts, that tornado, everything's been rebuilt. That was the federal government. I understand that people object to government spending in general, but they always supported it in the specific. And what we were able to accomplish then with the federal expenditure and what we would accomplish now to get us through this pandemic, is there's another reminder here. The pandemic was not about corruption, and it was not about malfeasance. It's about an international health issue. 550,000 Americans have died and 33 million have been infected. So there was paralysis in the early days. The CARES Act saved the American economy. And the manner in which we put that money into the hands of people who desperately needed it is a case study. When you think of simultaneously creating liquidity and demand to make sure that people could keep a roof over their heads, to make sure that there was food on the table, that's the partnership that the federal government offered. And it was an affirmative role that the federal government played. So I take great satisfaction, and because we've shaped much of that legislation through the Ways and Means Committee with the Speaker and the President, and my intention is to get this infrastructure bill done next.
You know, the congressman, when you see all this fighting that's going on the federal level, sometimes you see it on the state level, and unfortunately we see it on the local level. It's all about relationships. From the congressman on down, Governor Baker, so relationships, mutual respect, working together, bipartisan, being able to pick up the phone. Can you help with this? Can we do this? Can we do that? That's how you get things done. And I know the congressman always, you know, the yelling and the screaming, you know, he'll always say people are entitled to their opinion, but not the facts. So, you know, we work together here, and I'm ever grateful for his continued efforts and really writing this to the needs of what our people, the residents, and the business community of the city of Springfield and the city needs. And as I think we've proven it, what we did with the tornado and other natural man-made disasters, we will use it wisely, and we'll use the leverage of this investment to make for a stronger city for everyone in the city of Springfield. Leon?
So the 159 million people have received checks. The third round of $1,400, which took that number from December up to $2,000. There has been a problem with the issue of taxpayer IDs, because people as joint filers below $24,000, think of it, joint filers, two people in a household not making more than $24,000 annually. because they don't pay federal income taxes. They don't have taxpayer ID numbers. $12,000 for single filers. Under that, you don't pay federal taxes. So we've had a bit of a challenge getting those checks out to people now at the lower end of the economic spectrum. They go to work every day just because they don't file taxes. And everybody pays the most onerous tax, which is the payroll tax on wages. So I think that it's been a bit of a challenge there, but we're going to get those dollars out. I know the Social Security recipients now are on the verge of all receiving theirs. And the IRS has actually done a pretty good job on this. And the Department of Treasury, as the mayor noted, they're going to offer guidance. I'm thrilled with Janet Yellen being the new Secretary of the Treasury. And I've had this conversation with her. So making sure that those checks get into the hands of people who need them. This is the third round. Well, I think that overwhelmingly most of them have been delivered, but we're going to continue on this aggressive path that we've had to make sure everybody gets their check. And for people who inadvertently perhaps, or for others who have not filed their tax forms, you need to file those tax forms.
Go ahead, Neal.
Hey, you're doing great. Yeah.
Today, I was talking to them about the answer, you guys supportive, like you need this for
I support the president's position that there ought to be mental health background checks, and that there ought to be the ability to access documentation on a criminal past before somebody gets to buy a gun. I also think that what he's talking about today is the reconstruction of weaponry, some that's homemade, and he's going to crack down on that. I agree with him on that, again, 100%. One of the problems that we had way back to '94 with the assault weapons ban was that a lot of manufacturers got around that ban because they reconstructed the weaponry. So I think that what the president's proposing today is suitable public policy.
Any other questions or comments?
How much came in from the federal government post-tornado? Is there a total on that? Everybody looks at EJ. Sorry.
It's okay. It was roughly around 90 million we got. 90, yeah, 90 million. So, and that was transformative. So just figure between the CARES money that we got, the recovery money we're getting, and then the next on the hit parade would be the infrastructure bill. We're looking to do a lot of major things for the city.
And can you talk about some specific capital projects that you're looking at, Mayor?
Stay tuned.
Either from this bill or from the next one?
Stay tuned. We will, and we're working in concert with my cabinet heads and very closely with Congressman Neal. And at the appropriate time, we will list those capital projects of what we're looking to do. Again, we want to make sure that working through the chairman with Treasury, it's fine-tuned, the crossing of the T's and the dotting of the I's. But again, to Richie, his advocating for us on the flexibility and use of the money, especially the CARES money, because we were immediately able to get it to Helen to do what we had to do. We were able to immediately get it to Tim to do what he had to do, to get it out to businesses and give out support. That was invaluable. On specific projects, don't worry. I have a list. I know my cabinet head has a list. Pat Sullivan's always ready to go. So let's. His list is already. We just wanted to. Congressman's busy schedule. He wanted to come in. We had met earlier last week. I want to thank him, number one. Number two, the pockets, the categories we're going to go on, and then we're going to be much more specific and announce projects that we're going to do to benefit businesses, neighborhoods, those categories that I put across, the 5-6 categories.
The President talked yesterday, or the other day, about the tax implications of the infrastructure plan. I know that's going to come before your committee. What's next, and what are your thoughts on his announcement?
Well, the president has made, I think, a series of constructive suggestions as recently as the last 24 hours, with the understanding that from the time legislation is proposed by any executive and it makes its way through Congress, there are changes. And he's made that clear. He is open to compromise on this. The other side needs to say they're open to compromise on this as well. The position I've taken since the president announced what he wanted to do in close coordination with the speaker, we've been deliberately careful about the way we've handled this. So the president has said that moving the corporate rate from 21 to 28% is negotiable. Now remember, that went from 35% to 21%. I think that they're on the right track with cracking down. As you know, I've had a long history. Proposed legislation, I think the first in the House, that eventually shut down some of these tax loopholes. The question you have with some of it is this. It's not where profits are always made, it's where profits are reported as to having been made. So many companies, they look for low tax jurisdictions and they do what we call treaty shopping. They look for a favorable tax climate. So let's say that the profits might have been earned, and we'll just choose arbitrarily Germany. But if the profits are then reported in Bermuda, there's no tax exposure, even though the profits have been generated in a European Union country. So I think that the Secretary of the Treasury and the President about an international minimal tax makes a good deal of sense. And what they're trying to do, this is more than you need to know, but what we're trying to do on this is to harmonize international tax rates and use OECD. And as of yesterday, a couple of days ago, France and Germany seem to be headed in our direction. And I'm optimistic that they're going to find an agreement on a minimal tax so that you can't do treaty shopping.
There were reports this morning that the compromise rate on the corporate tax might be 25%. Is that accurate?
So since I'm going to write that bill, I'm not going to tell you anything.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, Congressman Neal, thank you very
Thank you.
much.